What is up, college lacrosse fans? You are watching the LaxFactor podcast. This is our college lacrosse weekend recap special conference tournament edition. We're going to touch on some games from this week. We'll talk about every conference tournament, seedings, and possible outcomes. As always, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. If you'd like to support us, you can purchase some swag. Go to LaxFactor.com. We have these t-shirts. We have these sweet Rampage Lacrosse peacock patterned shorts. Also, be sure to go over to LaxFactor.com/lamp and check out the Big League Lighting Lacrosse helmet lamps. We can turn your old helmet into a lamp. And if you can make it through the the first two segments, I'm going to talk about both of the ACC games that were played on Saturday. If you can make it through those first two segments, I'm going to tell you how you can win this jersey behind me. It's from TribeLacrosse.com. It is a Channel 4 lacrosse. Ron Burgundy has a number 10 on the back of it. Lacrosse reversible from TribeLacrosse.com. Make it through the first two segments. I'll tell you how you can go about winning that shirt in a contest for free. It is a medium, by the way, and I digress. Let's get into this. First game that I wanted to talk about is one of the ACC Tournament semifinal games that was played on Saturday. The ACC Tournament got started before all the other conference tournaments. We have North Carolina needing a win badly to keep their NCAA Tournament hopes alive. They don't get it. Virginia breaks their hearts 14-13. Oddly enough, North Carolina held a 12-8 lead early in the fourth quarter. They took a 12-8 lead. Virginia then outscored them from that point on 6-1 to close out the game. Ian Laviano, he nets the game winner. And next up for Virginia in the ACC finals is Notre Dame. As we rip through the scores in the game, one of the interesting things, halftime, they benched Alex Rode, who was not playing well in fairness, but it wasn't so bad that I would have thought they would have benched him. And they put in Patrick Birkinshaw, who put his name into the transfer portal. So here they bench the guy who's been their goalie here the last couple of games at least, for a guy who already put his name into the transfer portal and made very clear that he wants to leave. And Birkinshaw did come in and play better. Rode had a 40% save percentage, and Birkinshaw ended up 46%, and he made some big saves down the stretch. But I thought that was an odd move. Either way, Laviano, 4 goals. Conrad had a really good game, 3 goals. Kraus, 2-1, and Kraus scored one late that was huge. We have Justin Anderson on the UNC side, 2-2, and William Perry went 2-1. Caton Johnson, he did not have his best game. He really needed to, stand on his head just a little bit more, and they could have eked this out. Had he played like he's played a couple of times where he's really earned this starting spot, they might have been able to pull it out, but you can't ask the young gun to do everything. So Virginia, they move on to play Notre Dame. It was a heck of a game, though. Great battle, and it was interesting to see Virginia prove that, hey, they can be down and out, and they were losing this game most of the game, but they were able to battle back and make something of it and advance. They didn't need to advance, but it's always feels good to beat someone down and maybe end one of your rivals' seasons. Next up, Notre Dame and Duke. And Notre Dame's in a similar boat to North Carolina. They needed a win, and they got it in the ACC semi against Duke. They barely held them off, though. Notre Dame controlled most of this game. They jumped out to a 3-0 lead. They led 4-1 less than a minute into the second quarter. They held a 2 or 3 goal lead most of the game. CJ Carpenter, as Duke kind of chipped away at the lead late, CJ Carpenter got Duke to within 1 with 2:57 left, but then Brian Costabile, Duke was actually trying to clear late with about a minute 15, minute 20 left. They started to clear. They failed that clear, throwing the ball away at about midfield. Costabile ends up with it. He scores. I don't remember if it was an empty net or if it was just a almost empty net, but he scores with 54 seconds left. You'll see highlights rolling, and they end up winning that game. So they advance to the finals. I feel like that's all Notre Dame needed. Now, the ACC, remember, doesn't have an automatic qualifier, so they do not get a bid for winning this tournament into the NCAA tournament. So I think this is good enough, though, to get Notre Dame their bid, even if they lose next weekend to Virginia. And I think that the teams you're going to see get in from the Big East, or from the ACC, are going to be Virginia, Duke, and Notre Dame and Syracuse are all going to get at-large bids. I think North Carolina, they're the lone ACC team that gets left out. And as we rip through stats for this game, Costabile was huge. Bet one of the best middies in the country. Him and Dox Aiken are two of my favorite midfielders. Old school, between the box midfielders. He goes for 5 goals. Jacobois and Morin each go 2 and 1. Schmidt in cage for Notre Dame was huge. 18 saves in that win. Turner Upgren played good for Duke in cage. 15 saves. And Duke, normal guys. Carpenter 4-0. He scored the goal to get within 1 late in the game on an assist from Brad Smith, who went 1-3. So Duke will be fine. They're 11-4. They're getting their seed or their bid to the NCAA tournament. And Notre Dame, this was needed. They needed this, and I think this is good enough for them. They beat Maryland. They beat now Duke here, and they've got quality win over Syracuse. So I think that's enough of a resume to get them into the tournament. And we're going to move on from them. And now, hey, it's that time. I'm supposed to tell you how you win this thing. Really simple. Just make a comment. All you have to do, comment your thoughts about your favorite team that's making the tournament and why or why not you think they can win it. We're not going to put an entry in for just any stupid comment. Your comment to get entered to win this reversible jersey here, you have to have it be thoughtful. It's got to be about your favorite team or any team that you like to either win, lose the tournament, whatever. Just make a thoughtful comment about these conference tournaments and the NCAA tournament that is to come, and you get yourself an entry to win this jersey. We're actually going to do the next 2 shows. We'll collect entries to win this, and then we will have the drawing, and we'll announce it on the show after. So we move on now to Rutgers and Penn State playing a game, and this game was just really to shore up the seeding for the Big Ten Conference. And like the fart that never happened, Penn State squeaks one out over Rutgers. And point being, everybody was talking about how this proves that Penn State is beatable and how Rutgers maybe has the blueprint to beat Penn State. Or is it just a team with their backs against the wall that has a little bit more to play for on a given day, plays a little bit above, and the team that has nothing to play for virtually plays a little bit down? I know that people don't like to hear that, but that's the reality. I mean, I don't think this says anything to Penn State's chances to win at all, even though I'm seeing a lot of people jump to, Penn State's vulnerable. Every team is vulnerable. Penn State is still the least vulnerable team in terms of getting upset. They're still the favorite to win this tournament. This close game where they actually pull it out and beat Rutgers, this does not prove that Penn State isn't what they deserve to be, which is a number 1 team and pretty much the unanimous favorite for winning the whole tournament. But back to this game, back and forth game, the whole game, 8 different lead changes, so that was pretty exciting. Kobe Canese had a save late while the score was tied to turn away Adam Charlambides on a doorstep one-on-one shot. Edelman, he made a save towards the end of the game on a Jack Kelly shot. Sadly, that bounces right out back to Amet. I think somebody actually goosed it to Amet, who then found Kelly for the game-winning goal. And another big story, and this is going to be key leading into their conference tournament, into the NCAA tournament, is Arceri has just continued to dominate. He goes 18 of 29 from the face-off dot. I'm going to have to get used to saying dot because I get sick of mixing up the X behind the cage with the face-off X. So I'm going to start saying dot like all of you guys. So in the end, heck of a game here. Mac O'Keefe, he went for 5 goals and 2 assists. He was huge. Kelly went 3 and 1. And then Grant Amet, he goes for 7 assists on the day. I got a phone call coming in here. Rutgers, Tommy Coyne played really tough for Rutgers. He's going to be key in this in the upcoming Big Ten tournament. He was 6-0, and Adam Charlambides went 2-4. Ryan Gallagher 1-4. So great games. Edelman was tough in cage, 12 saves. Kobe Canese was tough in cage, 11 saves. So both goalies played strong. And the Big Ten tournament, how it's going to shake out is Penn State, they get to play Rutgers again. We're just going to have rematches for the Big Ten tournament. Penn State gets the number 1 seed. Rutgers gets the number 4 seed. So they will simply play each other again in the Big Ten tournament here coming up this week. The other game I wanted to hit was Johns Hopkins, the other Big Ten matchup. And I believe Ohio State losing had already given Johns Hopkins their bid to the tournament, if I'm correct. I don't remember, but maybe it played into the seeding with Rutgers. So Hopkins really did want to win, though, anyway. They have to make sure that if they don't win the Big Ten tournament, they get a shot at an at-large bid. So this win over Maryland, I'm not sure it gets them an at-large bid, but it certainly makes their resume look a little bit better. It gives them a little bit of buffer to make sure that they stay at 500 or above so that they could even be considered for the NCAA tournament. So that was huge. And now they get a shot at Maryland again. here. They beat Maryland here. Now they're just going to have to turn around and play Maryland again this week. And that was the 118th meeting between the two schools. So that was pretty cool. But the Jays keep their NCAA tournament hopes alive with that win. And Hopkins, Maryland took a 5-1 lead in the game. So it looked early like Maryland was just going to roll, and this was just going to be the end of Hopkins' season as we know it, even though I think they still could have gotten into the Big Ten tournament. And Hopkins goes on an 8-1 run to take a 9-6 lead at one point in before the end of the first half, and then they controlled the game from there. So the seeding for Big Ten: Penn State number 1, they've got number 4 Rutgers. Johns Hopkins is the number 2 seed. They're going to play the number 3 seed Maryland, and who would have thought Maryland would end up the number 3 seed in that tournament? But alas, that is what happened. Scoring in this game, Bubba Fairman he went off, 5 goals for Maryland in the loss. And Joey Epstein, he had another great game. He kind of bounced back from a bad game last week. He goes 4-2. Cole Williams continues to assert himself. That's going to be key. He goes 3-1. Forey Smith 2-2. Darby was not good in cage. Says here he had 2 saves. I'm not even sure if that stat can be correct. And Danny Dolan was decent in cage, 13 saves. So Hopkins keep their season alive. I still see people complaining that Petro needs to be fired. I think that's ridiculous. Petro, I think if anything, the only thing Petro needs to do is maybe add a cup, lose one of the real high quality teams off their schedule and play one more cupcake. And we're barely having this conversation if they weren't that close to 500. So I think that's the only thing that Hopkins needs to do is rework their schedule a little bit to fit in today's game, knowing that it's going to just be tough to win and to be 500 year in and year out with the brutal schedule that they play. We move on to the Ivy League, and this was there was a bunch of 14-13 scores, and this one was the same. Princeton 13, Cornell 14. Princeton was playing for their tournament lives, and Cornell, not only did Cornell in this win lock up their own Ivy League tourney bid, but they ended Princeton's season. Princeton led 12-10 with about 5:30 left, mostly thanks to Michael Sowers. Sowers proved that he is by far the most complete player top to bottom in NCAA lacrosse, more complete than Pat Spencer. The kid can do everything. He can dodge and create his own shot. Spencer can do that. He can dodge with his head up and feed people. Spencer can do that too. But his ability to quarterback the offense and make sure that he's keeping everybody else involved, whether he's being doubled or shut off or not. Spencer is getting doubled, quadruple teamed because he's such a physical force when he dodges one-on-one. Sowers doesn't have that. Sowers has to legitimately beat his man, be quick. He has to take a lot of abuse in these double teams. He can't just absorb this like Spencer does. I love what Sowers has done. He goes 7-1 in this loss, so it's kind of heartbreaking for him, but he's only a junior. He actually became Princeton's all-time leading scorer, all-time point scorer in this game just as a junior with one full season left. So it's almost a guarantee he's going to put up 80 to 90 points next season. So he is going to literally just shatter that record by the time he's done. Cornell, when they were down by those 2 goals, though, they started chipping back into the game. The game winner was weird. Cornell misses a shot. Teat had been getting shut off all game long. He starts with the ball on the end line and literally just takes 4 or 5 steps up the field, hits a streaking Peterson who run off a back pick off the high crease. Peterson scores the game winner. And that's all she wrote. Princeton's season is over. Cornell is going to advance to the Ivy League tournament. And that for Cornell, now they can lose in the first round of the Ivy League tournament, and I think they still get an at-large bid regardless. But the seeding for the Ivy League tournament as it stands here now, Princeton, done. Sorry, I was mixing them up with Cornell. Cornell, 3 seed. They're going to play the number 2 seed Yale. We'll talk about their game here. I mean, Yale, it wasn't all that exciting. Yale beat up somebody really, really bad to finalize theirs. Penn's the number 1 seed. They're going to play number 4 Brown. So it's Penn versus Brown, Yale versus Cornell in that Ivy League matchup. Scoring for that game here. For Cornell, Peterson, 4 goals, 3 assists. Piatelli, 4-2. Teat was quiet, 1-2, but he was being face guarded the entire game. So for him to even go 1-2 and to have that game-winning assist was pretty special. And Chase Erlin, 12 saves. He played solid in net for Cornell. So the Ivy League tournament's going to be very interesting. And I think, as I said before, they have the potential of being a 2 or 3 bid team, probably a 2 bid team. But I think that Cornell getting that win. You got Penn, Cornell, and Yale. I think that as long as Penn beats Brown and let's say Cornell beats Yale, then you definitely have a 3 bid team, I think, coming out of the Ivy. We move on next to the Big East tournament, and Denver had they had to play Marquette on Friday, and this was all every game that was being played was pretty much these Big East teams jockeying for position. So they beat Marquette on Friday by a goal. It was really odd too. It was one of the most anticlimactic game-winning goals I've ever seen, because the game-winning goal came somewhere in the middle of the third quarter, and then neither team scored again the rest of the game. So it was a defensive battle throughout from there. So Denver gets to win. They pick up the 1 seed, and they bounce Marquette. Georgetown, they handled their business, and they locked up their 2 seed by getting a win over St. John's on Saturday. So the seeding, and then Providence, they locked up the 3 seed with their win over Villanova. So the seedings are Denver's the number 1. They're going to play number 4 Villanova, and then Georgetown at number 2 is going to play number 3 Providence. So that's how that shook up. Now, one of the things I wanted to see here, Denver scoring-wise, they continue to spread it out. I was hoping Ethan Walker was going to put up 90 points this season, and he hasn't done that. But Sullivan 2-1, French 2-0, Walker 2-0, and so it was pretty spread out for Denver. Marquette, just, what are you going to do? You lose, you're done, and that is that. Now we move on to the Patriot League, and I mean, the Patriot League was another one. It's a league that has a bunch of 10-win teams, and then Lehigh shoring it up out here. So Loyola, they had dropped that game where they got beat down pretty badly by Boston U. They bounced back and got wins over Army last week and then Lafayette this weekend. I think they played on Friday. So that helped them lock up their number 1 seed. BU lost to Navy by a goal, but they get the tiebreak over Army. But then there's tie breaks all over the place and a lot of weird things going on. But it ends up being Lehigh is the freaking number 2 seed. Even though Lehigh has the worst record of those top 4 teams, they end up getting the 2 seed. Boston U gets the 3 seed. They're going to play number 6 Bucknell and number 4 Army. They're going to play number 5 Holy Cross. So Loyola and Lehigh get the byes in this one, which I thought that was odd. When I first drew this up, I forgot that the Patriot League had 6 teams that made the tournament, but that's how that all shook out. Loyola and Lehigh have byes. Boston U versus Bucknell, Army versus Holy Cross. We move on to the Colonial tournament. That is all set, and those matchups are done. This was another one where all of the weekend's games played. UMass beat Delaware. That clinches the number 1 seed for UMass, and it drops Delaware to the number 3 seed. Towson beat Drexel, so Towson secured the number 2 seed in the tournament. Both of those games this weekend were decided by 2 goals. So these 4 teams that played each other this weekend to decide the seeding, they all have to play each other again. They're going to swap opponents. So UMass at number 1 plays number 4 Drexel. Towson at number 2 plays number 3 Delaware. Great. They're going to all be great games, and this is any team's tournament. I'm still going to say UMass and Towson have the best shot, but it's hard to beat the same teams twice. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out for the Colonial. How often does the Colonial have 2 legit contenders come out, and let alone 3 legit teams that could potentially, if they were to get in, could potentially win a first-round game? Because I think that Delaware is capable of winning a first-round game should they be the team to get in. But then you have Towson and UMass, who are both legitimate lacrosse squads. We move on to High Points. High Points had just a hell of a season. Throughout the year, they secured the number 1 seed in the SoCon conference with their win over Richmond. Asher Nolting, he netted the game-winning goal for High Point. Nolting, he finishes the game with 4 goals and 3 assists, so he finished his regular season tear off well. Air Force beat Bellarmine 13-6, and Air Force gets the 2 seed. So the way it shakes out for the SoCon is High Point, the number 1 seed, Jacksonville's the number 4 seed. They will face off, and Air Force is the number 2 seed, and Richmond is the number 3 seed. So I think that out of this conference, you have 3 teams at the top, all legit teams, all that have proven that they're capable of knocking off a top 15, top 20 opponent. Jacksonville even has showed some promise, but this is a one team conference though. So whoever wins this tournament gets in, and I don't think the other team did. I've heard some people say that what if Air Force wins it and High Point at least makes it to the finals? Is that enough? Do they have enough of a resume to get themselves an at-large bid with wins over Virginia, wins over Duke? And I'd say no, because they have a couple of bad losses and their schedule overall just wasn't that good. So maybe the SoCon could certainly get 2 teams in, but I mean, we already have the ACC that's almost guaranteed to get 4 teams in. We've got the Ivy that's almost guaranteed to have 2 or 3 teams in. I just don't see the SoCon getting more than 1 team in, but it'll be an interesting tournament to watch. I never thought we'd be talking about the SoCon as having legitimate contenders, to get past the first round of the NCAA tournament. The NEC tournament field is also set. Mount St. Mary's, oddly enough, they secure the number 1 seed. They've played tough. We talked about them a little bit early, and I had covered one of their games early in the season. I think it was against Towson. The Mount, they get a game-winning goal out of Luke Frankeny over St. Joseph, so that's what gives them the 1 seed. Their goalie, Dylan Fernback, had 20 saves, played incredible. Hobart, of all teams, they lose a dogfight to Bobby Moe, 16-15, but they're still going to lock up the number 2 seed. And that win saved Robert Morris's season and got them into the final NEC tournament spot. So we have the 1 seed, Mount St. Mary's. They're going to play Robert Morris as the 4, and number 2 Hobart will play number 3 Sacred Heart in the NEC tournament this upcoming week. We move on to the America East tournament. That field is finally set as well. Stony Brook dropped Albany. They earned the number 1 spot in that tournament. They beat Albany 12-10 on Friday. It was actually an incredible game. Tom Hahn continued to prove he's one of the best players, if not the best player in the America East. He goes for 4 goals. Chris Pickle, he goes 3 goals. And let's see, what did DeHoga? He goes 2-0. Jacob Patterson was quieted. He only goes 1-2. Patterson's their leading scorer here. So excellent game. Stony Brook, they lock up the 1 seed, and they're going to face number 4, UMBC, who beat Hartford on Saturday to shore up their seeding. And then number 2, Vermont, will face number 3, Albany. Vermont's already beat Albany this year, and I forget what Stony Brook did. These teams all beat each other throughout the season. I think they were all sitting there at 3-2, 4-1 in that range somewhere. So either way, Stony Brook, I think they have the best chance of coming out of here, but don't front on either Vermont or Albany. And it would be an incredible story if Albany, with the season they've had, if they could win this tournament and snag this tournament's automatic qualifier. The last tournament, and this year, it's just the way it's shaken out. It's not always the case here, but this year, definitely, the MAAC has kind of been the conference that has been the most boring. So Marist, they beat Canisius on Saturday to secure the number 1 seed. Quinnipiac, Detroit Mercy, and Canisius are also going to get bids. So it's number 1 Marist against number 4 Canisius, number 2 Quinnipiac against number 3 Detroit Mercy. That was by far the most boring conference of the year. As we look for Marist, nothing really interesting to note. Jake McGregor, their goalkeeper, played really well against Canisius in that win. Jacob Buck for Canisius, he went 4-1. He was the leading scorer on the day. And then Joe Tierney led Marist at 2-2. So solid teams, but it was the conference that got no attention simply because they didn't, none of them had any really crazy quality wins or anything like that. Whereas some of these other teams, even teams in the America East, just played a slightly more impressive slate, I think, this year. It was just the way it worked out. So as always, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to support us so that you see more of our videos and all that good stuff. I'm going to put out another show on Tuesday where we're going to dive into regular season player awards and things of that sort. As always, make sure that you comment and make sure that your comment is intelligent and that it's referencing something cool about the teams that you're supporting, who you like coming out of the conference tournaments, who you like getting into the NCAA tournament, who you like to win it all. Just any type of intelligent comment, and we'll put your name in a hat to win this Channel 4 News Team lacrosse jersey from Tribe Lacrosse. You can go over to tribelacrosse.com and you can see all the gear and swag that they have. They have a ton of reversibles that are awesome, shorts, t-shirts. They have everything. Again, thank you for watching and enjoy.